Thanks for being here. Do you want to make a super cute little puppy with me? Specifically, this adorable little German Shepherd. Puppy pattern that's coming out, which is like part 1, also comes with a little mini dog. Small, medium, and large. And today I'll show you how to make the German Shepherd puppy. So mini, puppy, doggy. I thought it would be fun to show this too because I know in my last video I mentioned making a cat tutorial pattern, and I was kind of thinking my normal cat is this size. Why don't I show how to make the kitten, which is the same size as this? So this will kind of introduce you to like the pattern, and then my next video I'll show you how to make the kitten, which is very similar, just with some changes. If you couldn't tell, I'm in my new studio. My phone died. Moved to this cute little town in Maine that has a farmer's market every Friday that crafters are allowed to attend, because sometimes like actual farmer's market only let farmers come for obvious reasons. But I was gonna do a few soon. Puppies are really quick and easy, and they always sell really well along with the cats. And because they're smaller, I can make them a little cheaper, like, I don't know, depending on the demographic of who's shopping, $15, $20 maybe each. Maybe like 15, because it's a small town and I want to make friends with my neighbors. I decided to do the German Shepherd, even though, don't hate me, I do use the black yarn, because I thought it would be the most popular in the pattern. So I'll go over everything that you need to make them, and I'll show you a little bit of my studio. I will have like a studio renovation video. It's just taking forever because I'm still not done and I'm super sick of painting and I don't want to finish. Thanks for watching, and if you like my videos or my crochet patterns and you want to support me as an artist, you can always like and comment and subscribe and do all that YouTube stuff. You could get a PDF copy of the pattern, really helps me, or you could join my Patreon and get a free pattern every month. And you also get to see everything first. Like I post all of my new ideas and my new plushies, everything like that. We'll move over to that side of my shelf wall and I'll show you all the cute little puppies. I think I'm gonna switch and put the plushies there and then the fancier yarn there, just so when I take pictures of plushies, like the plushie yarn is in the background. And the light from my window right there like messes up all my filming. So little baby mini Pomeranians, Huskies, got plain just pointed ears, tricolor corgis, little baby pugs, German Shepherds, mutts, Frenchies, did a little Aussie and a terrier. I really love the Frenchie. I think he's so cute, and he's the only one that has like a flat face along with the pug. The other ones have like little noses. So let's pick out some of the yarn we're going to use today and we'll get started. I've been using a lot of like natural colors for the dogs just because I'm making specific breeds, but you could change it up and make this in like any color that you want. I definitely want to make them in different colors too, but I'm going to be using this Premier Basics in the color Caramel, and with Joanne Fabrics kind of going under, I think I'm going to be using more and more of this as time goes by. And I'm also going to be using the little bit last of my black yarn, which is just Bernat Blanket Coal. I have been avoiding the Joannes like a plague because I know if I go there I will do some damage, and I think you can see I have enough yarn to last me at least a year. So really proud of myself for avoiding that. So other than the yarn, here is some other tools and materials that you'll need. You'll need a 6.5mm crochet hook, a yarn needle to sew in your ends and add details. If you're unfamiliar with my patterns or just starting your crochet journey, you might want 7 stitch markers. You could use any size eyes that fit your style. I'm going to be using like 16mm or 18mm. You always need polyfill and of course the pattern. I'm going to show you one today, but if you want to make the other 11, you can always find the PDF in my shop. So I wanted to show you where I messed up the initial one, but I'm so grateful for the awesome crochet artists who test my pattern because they noticed that it was insane. Dark brown plushie yarn is kind of hard to find and honestly kind of brillo-y like the old style of Bernat Blanket. So I tried black and I actually like it a lot better, but it's totally up to you. Alright, let's get started and make a super cute puppy plushie together. We'll start the pattern off basically how we start all of my patterns, by making a magic circle and then placing 8 single crochets within the magic circle. If you're not comfortable making a magic circle, or if you're using like chenille yarn which snaps all the time, you can always just like chain 3 or 4 and make a loop and then work within that. We're going to be adding like a nose over row 1, so it won't be that big of a deal if you have a hole there. We can always just like cover it up with a nose. Now is a great time to decide if you're going to be placing your stitch marker in the first stitch of each row or the last stitch of each row. I always place mine in the last stitch of each row, but it's something you want to be consistent about so you don't forget and keep switching it or something. So for row 2, we're going to do 1 single crochet, and then in the next stitch we're going to do an increase, and we're going to repeat that 4 times total. And an increase is just 2 single crochets made into the same stitch. The reason why we're doing the second row and the third and the fourth like a little weird instead of just doing a normal flat circle like a lot of patterns have is because we want the dogs to have like a little snout, and doing this will kind of make it curve in a little before we go out, if that makes sense. It'll make sense in a minute. I usually call these an increase row because we're increasing the amount of stitches we have, and usually when we do that we always end with an increase. So your last stitch should be an increase. And you can kind of see now, it's gonna make a cute little nose for him instead of just being like a flat face. So I'm gonna try a new way of changing colors for this plushie just to see if I like it better, because it's supposed to help with like color migration and stuff, but you should do whatever you're comfortable with. There's like hundreds of different ways to change colors online, and I usually don't finish the last stitch and then pull through with a new color to finish it, but with this new way we're gonna like slip stitch on with the new color. And honestly, foreshadowing, I don't even know if I would bother to do it because it kind of like messes up the stitches a little and doesn't really help with color migration, so I just saved you. But if you want to, if you prefer this way better, you should try it. At least try it before you hate it. So after making 8 single crochets with brown, change back over to black to finish the row with 4 single crochets. And the brown part is going to be going along the puppy's chin, like along the bottom of his face. So as you can see with this method, I'll just call it like slip stitch method of color changing, you do finish the last stitch in the last color and then just pull through with the changing color. But it kind of adds bulk to the stitches, and which I was struggling with. I thought I was going crazy adding more extra stitches, but it's the slip stitch area kind of makes it feel like there's 2 stitches there, so that's why I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. But for row 4 we're going to start with brown again and then do 8 increases, so that's just 2 stitches into each stitch repeated 8 times. And because we're doubling the amount of stitches, this is the part of the plushie's face that's going to flare out and be like his chin and his cheeks, and then where we're going to add his eyes. After you finish up with the brown, switch over back to black, and we're going to finish the row with 4 increases. I'm getting pretty excited about market season, but I also dread it because it's like so much work to load everything in the car and like set it up, and if it's windy that day all of your stuff blows away. But it is very fun. And it's so nice to actually meet people in person and talk to them. Only a few thousand people live in my town, so I might actually meet a new friend in the area who also likes to crochet cute stuff. But let's get serious because next is the row I kept messing up, and we should all pay attention so no one ever messes it up again. But it's totally okay if you do. You can always email me and I'll help you. Okay, the first part of the row is pretty normal. We're gonna do 2 single crochets and then an increase, and repeat that 5 times. The second part of the row is going to be a little weird because we're going to be adding the eyebrows. We want them to be evenly spaced, but we also want there to be 32 stitches in the row. So I had to move a few things around, but it still works out. Switch over to black, and then we're just going to make 2 single crochets. And then we're going to switch back over to brown because we're going to add an eyebrow. And if you don't want to do this, you don't have to. You could just do this whole section in black and then sew on the eyebrows later. That might make it easier. For the eyebrow, we're just going to do an increase and then switch back to black. And then this is the weird part. We're going to do 1 single crochet, increase, and then 1 single crochet before switching back to brown to make the other eyebrow by making an increase. And then you can finish off the row by switching back to black and making 2 single crochets. I did notice that changing colors this way did mess up like the right side a little bit. I don't know why I believe TikTok videos that this way was so much better. I promise I give up on it really soon in the video, I think when I go to make the ears. But this next row is super easy after that. Just make sure after you finish row 5, you should probably just count to make sure you have 32. And then for the next row, we're going to do 19 single crochets in brown and then 13 single crochets in black. So row 7 and 8, they're pretty similar to my cats. If you ever made them, we're going to be adding the ears by working first in row 7 in the front loop only for the 3 stitches that make up each ear. And then in row 8, we'll single crochet normally and then single crochet in the 3 stitches behind the ears. But to get there, first we're going to single crochet 22 just using black to get to the point where we want to add our first ear. And just so you know, because we have like this built-in face coloring and details, it will make it harder for some people to get the ears straight because everyone has different tension, everyone uses different yarn and different hook. It's never going to be exactly the same for everyone. So marking out the back loop of the stitches is going to help you find them, but it also will help you visualize where the ears are going to be. And if they're going to be super crooked, you can notice that before you make them and then adjust it accordingly. Move it over one side or the other, and it doesn't really matter if you have to. So I'm just showing the back loops of each stitch, and that's where we're going to place the stitch markers. Place 1 stitch marker in the back loop only of the next 3 stitches. Because we're not going to be working in those stitches, we're going to be leaving them for the next row. We're going to be working in the front loop only of the next 3 stitches. And as you can see, I totally had enough of that silly slip stitch changing color method and switched back to my old reliable finish off the stitch color change method. And it just felt so much better. It was a relief. Okay, so in the first front loop only stitch, we're going to do a double crochet increase, which is just 2 double crochets made together in that same front loop only stitch. And then working in the next front loop only stitch, we're going to do a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, all made together into the same front loop only stitch. In the last front loop only stitch, we're going to do a half double crochet, but we're going to change colors as we do it. So it's a little weird. So you go through, pull up a loop, and now normally you would pull through to finish the half double crochet, but we're going to pull through with black so that we're ready for the stitches between the ears. And you can go ahead and make 3 single crochets just normally through both loops. End the last stitch with brown because we're ready to make the next ear. And we're basically going to do the same thing, only mirrored. So for the first front loop only stitch, we're going to make a half double crochet. For the next one, we're going to make a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, all made into the same front loop only stitch. And then into the last front loop only stitch, we're going to make a double crochet increase, which is just 2 double crochets made together in the same stitch. But don't finish the last stitch because we're going to switch back to brown and then make 1 normal single crochet to finish off the row. Here's a comparison between the 2 color changes. This one is the one I just made with like the slip stitch color change method, and then the one on the right I made using my normal color changes. And I can't see a big enough difference to justify doing all that. We're officially done with the color changes on the face, so you can cut and tie the brown and be done with it because it always tangles around my black and annoys me. But the only other time we're going to be using it is for the feet and then the little puppy butt. So we won't need it for like a little bit. And now pretty easy, just single crochet 22, which will bring you right around to the first ear. And be careful, you might want to count, or just be careful, because we don't want to accidentally place a single crochet into the first double crochet that makes the ear. You can remove the stitch markers and then place one single crochet in each of the back loops behind the ear. Maybe try to pull them up a little before you take out the stitch markers to make them easier to see. And now the same thing, be careful when we go to single crochet between the ears. We don't want to place a single crochet in the ear. We just want to work into the tops of the single crochets between each. So do 3 single crochets between the ears and then remove the stitch markers from the second ear. And you can do the same thing, place 1 single crochet in each of the back loops behind the ear. And then easy to finish it off, just 1 normal single crochet. It's starting to look great, and you can start to see the shape of the dog's face a little bit. Now for the next row, we're going to add the feet, and I'm going to show you how to adjust them if you have to, because just like the ears, people have different tensions and different hooks and different yarn, and so it's best to double check before we make them and adjust accordingly. So single crochet 8, and then you can place a stitch marker in the next stitch, skip 3 stitches, and place a stitch marker in the next stitch. And that will help you visualize where the bobble stitch feet are going to be. When we go to make the bobble stitches, we're going to use brown, and we're kind of going to do it in a different way. We're going to finish our last stitch in black and then hold the yarn to make the first double crochet. But we don't finish each double crochet, and we just keep making them into the same stitch until you have 4. And if you wanted to have the feet a little bigger, you could make 5, or smaller, you could make 3. And then when we go to pull through all of them, pull through with black. And then single crochet 3 between. And now for the second foot, you do the same thing, and it's a little easier to hold the brown yarn because it's already attached to the other foot. You just make 4 double crochets into the same stitch without finishing each one, and keeping them all on your hook until you have 4 double crochets made out of brown, and then you can pull it through with black. And the reason we're starting kind of ending with black is because it'll make the bottom of the bobble stitch black and not brown, so that'll help cut down on the color migration when we go to crochet the next row. Finish off the row by just single crocheting 19, and that'll bring us back to the stitch marker, and then we can stop and I'll show you how to add the eyes and the nose and even a little blush. And then the rest of the plushie is going to be like a really quick breeze. We're past all of the hard parts. So I like to add the eyes between rows 4 and row 5 with about 8 stitches between them. But then when you actually put the eyes on, it ends up being like 6 visible stitches. And you can move them around and see what looks right. These are the 18mm eyes that I'm using right now. And they should land just about where the color change is. And it was so hard to put on this eye because of that silly slip stitch color changing. It was so bulky behind the eye. But yeah, you can mess around with the size of the eyes, different placement, everything, and it really changes the look of the plushie. And I think that's what makes everyone's style so unique, is because everyone has a preferred like aesthetic that they lean towards, and that's why you can tell one person's plushies from another, and it's really cool. And you just lean into that and find some style and look that you like. Still, don't be afraid to experiment, because I was set on using 16mm eyes for these, and that's just always what I did. And then this time I tried 18 and it looks so cute. I always try and point the pupils up towards the center, and that's just what I like. I've seen other people do it like down towards the center, and that looks cool too. Now that the eyes are on, let's work on the nose. So the nose seems harder than it is. We're just gonna sew around row 1 with 4 single crochets on the top and 4 single crochets on the bottom, so that it's kind of even in the center. The only advice I have is to be mindful of how your yarn looks. Start at the top and be very careful to layer each new strand. And just be careful you're not sewing through the cotton and splitting the yarn, because you can see when that happens. And just be careful you're going through the same stitch each time. And when you go to pull it tight, place it really nicely right under the next one and make sure there's no black yarn peeking through. Just go slow and take your time and make it look nice, because it's right in the center of the plushie's face. Everyone's gonna see it. I have seen people use like those plastic safety noses, and I think those look really cool. And if you don't like sewing on a nose, you should try those. The last step after I go around 4 or maybe 5 times is I go down through the center once and then up through the middle, and that just makes a little mouth area for the dog. Looks great. And you can like fix it up a little with your needle, and make sure the back looks okay too, just so it's not looped around a million different things in there. You can also take this chance to add a little blush just to make him extra cute. I like to use a pink color called Coral Blossom, and it usually goes with everything. And I just do the same thing. I thread through the back and then loop around to stitch 2 or maybe 3 times before looping through the back again and then tying my ends. The last thing you might want to do before we continue is to cut any really awkward color changes that go all the way across the plushie, because when you go to stuff it, it might mess with the shape a little. So I go and I cut and I tie each one 3 times. Now after all of that work, you can finally just zone out and single crochet around for 5 rows. Just be careful to move your stitch marker each time. You go do that, and I'm gonna go make a coffee because I'm starting to get tired. It's the next day, I couldn't do it. I'm fine with working like 12 hours crocheting stuff, but I need to go to bed at like the same time as my daughter, which is 8 o'clock. Anyway, you can single crochet for as many rows as you want to make the dog long or short. But something to be aware of, it's just the way crochet stitches work that they're going to go diagonal, because your new stitch is always to the right of your old stitch. So normally we would think it would be right behind that, but that's why I said move your stitch marker each row, is because that's gonna kind of mess with the back feet. So I added an extra single crochet to the pattern, so we're gonna do 9 single crochet, but you should still double check with your stitch markers before making them, because it's annoying to have to take them out and do it again. It only takes a second, and like I make a million of these, so I don't check every single time. I just kind of eyeball it. It's totally up to you. Just place 1 stitch marker in the next stitch, skip 3, and then place another stitch marker in the next, and that will be where your back feet are. We're gonna make the back feet the same way we did the front feet, by finishing off our last black stitch and then just holding the brown to make 4 double crochets, each one not finished and left on the hook in the same stitch, before finishing off the bobble stitch with black and pulling through all of the loops on our hook. Then we can make 3 single crochets between the feet, and make the last stitch in the same way. Yarn over with the brown, 4 double crochets, each one not finished, made in the same stitch. And then pulling through with black. When you go to tie these, you can always like pull it tight and make this next stitch extra tight to kind of make sure they're popping out in like bobble shape and they don't turn flat or anything. And now just finish off the row with 18 single crochets. The next row is super simple, and we're just gonna single crochet around. I'll just show you how I single crochet with the bobble stitch, because sometimes I get questions about that. I like switching over to brown for the rest of the plushie, just to add a little detail onto the back of him. And now we're gonna do a decrease row. So we're starting to finish it off. We're gonna do 2 single crochets and then an invisible decrease, and repeat that for 8 times total. And an invisible decrease is just pulling up the front loop only of the next 2 stitches and then single crocheting normally. and that turns 2 stitches into 1, and that will start to make the plushie smaller so we can close it off. Take this chance to tie any loose ends you might have, because we're going to stuff the plushie before we continue to close it further, because it's going to be a little hard to get in there. And now for the next row, it's really simple and just like the one before, only we're going to do 1 single crochet and then an invisible decrease, and repeat that 8 times. Want to pull each stitch tight after you make it so that you don't have any gaps, because it is a little hard when you have like a bunch of stuffing because it makes your tension off. For the last row, just invisible decrease around and you should be left with 8 stitches. Fasten off, and then we'll use our yarn needle to go around and sew the plushie closed. To do that, I just loop around the front loop only of each stitch before pulling it tight to close the hole. Then I usually tie a knot 3 times and hide the knot inside the plushie. Now we're at the home stretch, let's make a cute little tail and then sew it on. The tail is pretty simple, we just make a magic circle and then single crochet 6. I like to single crochet around for 5 rows, but you can experiment with it and make it as long or as short as you'd like. I even thought that if you made like a little nubby tail, this could be a Doberman type of dog too. To sew the tail on, I usually secure the front and back of it first, just so I know it's going to stay where I want it to. And then I just work my way around, sewing around 1 stitch of the tail and 1 stitch on the body to connect it all the way around. And the reason why I sew it on and I don't crochet it on is because I like for it to have a round base shape and not really flat, so that it stands up on its own. And I don't stuff the tail, but you can if you'd like to. To finish it off, tie a knot 3 times and then hide the knot inside the plushie and trim your ends. I always like to squish him around a little just to make sure he has a really cute shape. And then there you go, it's the cutest little German Shepherd puppy ever. I hope you all have a great start of your market season, and the next video I'll be working on will be a little kitten to go along with this puppy. I just have to finish up my next pattern, which is my farmer's market bears that are in the background, and then I'll get started on that. Thanks for watching, and I wanted to take a second to thank all of my Patreon members because they're so awesome, and I really appreciate their support. This puppy pattern will be the pattern of the month for them, so if you head over to the Patreon and you're a member, you can download the whole PDF for free. And I'll have a vote on what the next pattern of the month should be, but it can be the Farmer's Market Bear if you guys would like. I hope everyone had fun crocheting and that you have a great day today. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye!